It takes pressure and time to create a butterfly. It takes pressure and time to create a butterfly. If I close my eyes when I hear Rumi's words, I see a caterpillar gyrating and wriggling into its chrysalis. As the cocoon builds layer by layer on the outside, the caterpillar inside melts its form and solidity layer by layer until it bears no resemblance to a caterpillar nor yet a butterfly. It is an amorphous entity unto itself, a thing transforming. I know this gooey place inside the cocoon. It is a place where we release the underpinnings of who we are, how we see ourselves, what we expect, what we can rely on. In the undoing of the cocoon, my identity dissolves. As I go deeper into the uncertainty of this amorphous state, the only thing that keeps me from utter despair is trust that I am in transition, not only dissolving, but becoming. But becoming what? I've been a psychotherapist for the past 20 years. My practice has been oriented around bringing therapy to those who would not otherwise have access to mental health services. I am the daughter of Holocaust survivors. I grew up hearing the stories of my parents' childhood abuses in an anti-Semitic pre-World War II Poland. I heard their stories of staggering suffering in the Jewish ghetto, where 150,000 Jews were crammed into a small, cordoned area of the city and deprived of the basics necessary to sustain life. And I also heard my father's stories of survival in the concentration camps, where a wrong step or a sadistic guard held life or death. With my emotional roots deep in the trauma of untold suffering, the path I've always sought is one of healing, for myself certainly, but also in the broader scope for anyone who suffers. At the counseling center where I completed my own training, I teach a one-day workshop on grief and loss every 6 months. I teach interns and lay counselors, anyone who works in some guidance capacity with no formal training in counseling. I validate loss as a universal human experience. I'm always trying to bridge differences by appealing to our common humanity. It gets intimate from the very beginning, and they learn from each other through their personal sharing, and it gets emotional. Their connection to the material dives even deeper when at the end, I give them paper and markers and invite them to envision a loss they've had and represent it with color and shape, however it appears to them. My workshops are deep and heartfelt. I offer compassion, validation, support. So what was different about this last workshop? A single word. I described the South Central neighborhood I used to work in as the ghetto. On that fateful Friday morning, the group was eclectic as usual. There were 3 women from a social service network, a pastor, a couple of drug and alcohol rehab workers, and 6 ex-gang members who now worked for a social rehabilitation network. The group seemed particularly sensitive to the topic of grief and loss, so I slowed down my presentation to allow plenty of opportunity for personal sharing. Some clearly struggled to contain their emotions. I wanted to reassure them. I wanted them to know that I understood, that I had worked in the inner city in South LA, and that I was familiar with the challenges that they faced. I wanted them to know I understood. So I said, I used to work in the ghetto. I used that word because I thought it would connect me to the people there, and because it also connected me to the suffering that I knew through my parents' experiences in the Jewish ghettos. That suffering of the ghetto, that was a pain I knew as if I had lived it myself. But they couldn't know that. What they did know is that a white, privileged woman was calling their home a ghetto, and it made them mad. I sensed something was wrong, but I didn't say anything, and either did they. And so we went on to do the art project. A couple of the ex-gang members drew a swirling black hole. The following Monday, the program coordinator confronted me as we were passing in the hallway, telling me that I had offended several of the group members and that their artwork was actually an expression of rage at me for having used the word ghetto. You know those black holes, she said? That wasn't their grief. That was their anger. I stood there in the hallway stunned, dumbfounded. After a couple of beats, I recovered my composure enough to stumble through my next meeting. And that was it. No more was said about the ghetto issue in the weeks that followed. My counseling center, the place where I learned the art of healing, could not itself be a source of healing for me. I was left alone to deal with the chaos of my feelings. Shock, shame, hurt, betrayal, isolation, remorse. I thrashed in the muck of helplessness and resignation inside my cocoon, desperate to salvage my defiled identity as a caring healer, feeling deeply hurt myself in the recognition that I had caused such injury. Must the caterpillar thrash about in its chrysalis to become a butterfly? Over those weeks of internal thrashing, a new reality began to take form. I came to see that though human suffering is universal, how we suffer is very personal and very specific. Differences do matter. We've all known suffering, but the truth is, I don't really know what it is to be them, and they don't know what it is to be me. I want to have that conversation now. I want to listen cleanly, without the veil of assumptions, and open my heart to their truth. And then, all of us butterflies can unfurl our wings. Thank you.